Joining us in the studio after an unexplained absence last week, Steve Millington, chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. We welcome him back to Top Story with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. What do they say? Happy wife, happy life?
Yep, that's exactly right. If mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. We got a gift certificate that to go spend a day up in Island Park, and I do not play in that regard very well, but that was an enjoyable day. We just took off, went up there. The weather was the most cooperative that they had seen in weeks, and it was just a delightful day.
They call that Millington weather.
Yeah, it worked really well, I'll tell you. Oh, man, it was fun.
You know you're important when the sun obeys your commands, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
We were talking during the break about Donald Trump, and from a standpoint of someone who's within the machinery of the Republican Party. I mean, Karl Rove was pulling his hair out about this last night on O'Reilly's program. And, Rove is saying this is going to hurt us, this is awful, and yet there's nothing they apparently can do to stop it.
Well, the problem is that the Washington establishment, the elitists back there who find him offensive, is because what he's doing is he's saying what the voters out in the country want to hear. We're sick and tired of sending people back to Washington and then having them not do one cockeyed thing. They just, they make all these promises, and once they get the key to get in the room, they forget what they are supposed to be doing back there. And they just fall in line and go along, and that's the way the deal works. And if you don't, you get punished.
How though, can some of these people get it so wrong? They keep thinking they're going to do it the way they've always. We were just looking at the TV monitor, and Scott Walker has I don't know about this birthright citizenship repeal.
Yeah, right.
They is it that they're that out of touch that they don't have a lot of, you had a picnic here a couple of weeks ago where the party leaders and the candidates all get to meet the regular folks.
Right.
Is there not enough of that going on?
There isn't. And let's talk about our picnic. It was last Wednesday night. We had a great time, and I'm still smarting just a little bit over that deal. We sent invitations to our state constitutional officers and our congressional officers and all of our local leadership. From a Twin Falls County standpoint, we had every Twin Falls County elected officer present. We had the legislative officers from District 25, 24, and Burt Brackett from 23. Now, you mentioned Pete Nielsen was down here yesterday to this meeting at CSI. He's also from 23. But Pete and his wife have had some health problems the last couple of weeks. I can understand why he didn't come down for the picnic. But we had one state officer show up, Lawrence Wasden, Attorney General. He showed up. The only one from our state delegation. Not one of our congressional officers showed up. No Crapo, no Risch, no Simpson. It's as though Twin Falls, to heck with you, you don't count, you're going to vote for the Republican anyway, we don't even need to come see you. Now, Crapo did have some town hall meetings. One was in Castle Ford. I think that's only one that he had in Twin Falls County. I could be mistaken on that.
He was in Filer.
Was he?
And yes, to make a couple other stops.
all he'd had to have done was just very carefully tweak his schedule, and we had 175 people to our picnic, and they avoided us. They just didn't show up, and so I say to myself, Lawrence Wasden, you can continue to send me requests for money for your campaign. The rest of you guys, take my name off your cotton picking list, because I don't mean enough to you to even come down to our picnic. And I'm not the most important guy in the world, but I do run a little Republican Party here in Twin Falls, and we don't even count. We don't even get on your stupid page. Now, we did have Steve Yates, the state party chairman. Boy, he's been a good old boy. Let me tell you what. He talked to us about the national convention. He was in Cleveland for the debate because the Republicans had their national convention there at exactly the same time frame. And so he visited with us a little bit about what went on there and what they're going to do and how they're going to go through the process of primary elections next spring. And that was very fascinating to listen to him and see that whole thing come about. He's very knowledgeable and just handled it very comfortably. But so many of these other people, we just don't count. It's almost like they take us for granted.
I remember years ago living in another state, and I remember one of the local Republican elected state legislators literally came right out and said, "I don't need the party any longer."
Yeah.
And he said, "I can get elected in my district just by showing up
And it makes
on
you
election
wonder.
day."
It makes you wonder if that isn't part of the problem, that they just have this mentality that says, "I don't need you. Watch this," and so they go do whatever they want to do. It just drives me, as you can tell, it bothered me a lot.
It's not like it's difficult to find.
Yeah. Wow.
The 8:40. More with Steve Millington coming up. We'll take some of your telephone calls as well. It's 57. It was 54 earlier, so maybe a quick warm up today. In fact, it was a little chilly outside for some of us. We've got more with Steve coming up. Save those telephone calls. Believe me, we have another long segment ahead of us. You're listening to Top Story with Bill Colley on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. Steve Millington joining us in studio. He is the chairman of the Twin Falls County Republican Party. He'll be here with us for another, 17 minutes. And if you have a comment or question for him, you can give us a telephone call at 736-0300, 736-0300. Bill Colley with you as well on Top Story on News Radio 1310 KLIX and newsradio1310.com. We're up to 58. We seem to gain a degree every couple of minutes. And you're on the air with Steve Millington.
Yeah, good morning. Steve, if you think you're disappointed because Crapo and Simpson and Rich didn't show up at the picnic, I was extremely disappointed that only Pete Nielsen of all of the area senators and representatives didn't show up last night. I did send out a personal invitation to all of them, including Speaker Bedke, and nobody showed up except Pete Nielsen. He drove all the way down here from Mountain Home. I was extremely disappointed because this is such an important topic, and you talk about being ignored or ignoring a severe problem. Steve, we really need to chastise Hartkin and Clow. These people live right here in this area. Maxine Bell, Kaufman, they should have been there. And I think you need to chastise them as chairman for not being there last night. And like I say, Patrick did send me back an email. He had another commitment to speak before suicide prevention last night. But I'd like your comments on that, why they're ignoring this real serious problem of coming in with these unvetted Syrian Muslim refugees. Thank you very much.
Thanks. And I don't think that the issue is solely and completely concerning this refugee problem. Sometimes I think that it's just their nature to avoid these kinds of highly inflammable, confrontational type issues, and so I don't think it's just the refugee issue alone. I think sometimes we find convenient reasons to not participate because it's not going to be a pleasant moment. You're going to have to listen to people. You don't have to go in there and make a huge big statement and say, this is what I'm going to do and this and this and this. Go listen to what the people are saying, ask more questions, and find out where they are, what they're thinking, and ask, how should we resolve this? And then you're in a position where you have a little bit more information, you can be a little bit more knowledgeable, and you can find the answers to these questions. Now, I will say this, at our picnic last Wednesday, we had all of our local elected people, everybody from 24 and 25 and bracket from 23. Pete Nielsen wasn't there, but and I'm surprised that Pete drove down last night for that thing. Good for him. Well, I have been his opponent the last couple of elections, and last go round it was so squeaky close that it was scary for both of us. but Pete had a little accident 4 or 5 weeks ago and spent a couple of days in the hospital recuperating. His wife just had an ankle replacement surgery, so she's still recuperating. And good for Pete.
Here's a question, and the caller referenced this. Maybe you as county chairman, and I think his point was you should be riding herd, but just how much, I'll give you an example. Maxine Bell is one of the strongest personalities I've ever encountered in politics.
She is.
I don't think she'd be offended if we said she's tough.
I call her the iron fist in the velvet glove.
Yes. So, she's well ingrained in her community, has been for decades. Probably doesn't see a lot of serious opposition, at least from the Democrats. How many of them there are in that area? You could probably count them on one hand. Who knows? But the fact of the matter is, I don't know how much influence you can have as chairman. I mean, your job is fundraising. Your job is, getting people out to vote and the like. But you're not their boss, obviously.
Absolutely, I'm not their boss. But you do reach a point where you could just gently tell them this issue it's gaining some traction, and it's going to become a hot button. And in most of these kinds of issues, it isn't the silent majority; it is the vocal minority that carry the sway. And so even though we look at them and say, "Oh, it's just this small bunch of people," just whoa, that's where you get movements started. That's where you get things changing. You made a good point on the first segment this morning when you said these people who find a considerable lack of cooperation from the CSI Board of Trustees. I think there's 3 of them up for re-election in November. Well, let's see. We have September, October. Wow, we only got 60 days till we have an election. Well, call it 70, 75. That isn't that far. And this issue is not going to go away. And somewhere between 500 and 800 solid, secure, dedicated, confirmed votes could replace 3 people on that Board of Trustees. That would be a huge change in the direction.
Oh, this program I was at last night, somebody said, what happens when you go to a meeting? It was Vicki Davis, I believe. She said, when you go to a meeting, her experience has been, she said, the people who are sitting on a town board, city council, or even in a legislative hearing, she said they're doing a head count to see how many people are out there, because the head count's a good indication. There's that old line that if you get a letter from a constituent, it represents like 1,000 other views.
Mm-hmm.
So they're doing head counts and the like, and so this large body of people, they may not be, there's nearly 50,000 people in Twin Falls, so only 450 of them showed up at a Southern Baptist church to hear this pastor a couple of weeks ago. But who do those 450 people represent? As our caller just said a couple of minutes ago, Jim Patrick had another commitment last night. He can't be everywhere at once. The
Correct.
Same thing with members of the public. Your kid has a soccer game or there's something going on, but 450 people they could represent 45,000.
They could represent a huge population of people. and keep in mind that the trustees for the College of Southern Idaho are elected from Twin Falls County and Jerome County. Those 2 counties form the college district, I think, community college district. So when we have an election, it's Jerome and Twin Falls County that participate in that election of trustees. It would not be too difficult for a relatively small number of people to control the outcome of that election. And these trustees need to be a little bit more thoughtful about that. It isn't just, this is a major issue, and we could see people change on the Board of Trustee, but it's going to be 4 years before they get voted again. I think it's 4 or 6. I don't remember. I think it's 4. So, they could be helping to control the direction of the college for an extended period of time. And the interesting thing is that the college has compounded this thing by trying to change rules midstream. Who can speak at the meetings? You have to file 2 days ahead. You only get 3 minutes. You can't participate more than once every 6 months. Leave that alone until this issue is completed. Then go back and review it and put that in place after. But what you're doing now is you're compounding the current issue with something that's not really relevant.
Even people who may not agree with this group of folks, these activists, the newspaper is a good example. They see it as just a matter of spite. And when the liberal newspaper is saying, well, wait a minute, that means a lot of other people who've been sitting on the fence on this,
might
Uh,
not be sitting on the fence any longer.
right. And it's going to have. We just talked about Donald Trump earlier. There's a reason Donald Trump is attracting all of this attention is because he's willing to just get in somebody's face.
Yep.
And I think that there's a lesson in that all the way down to the local political level.
Clear to the local political level. And one of the things when the Tea Party kind of began 6 or 8 years ago, they wanted to be the, quote, grassroots element to fire things up. We are the people on the street. And they may have lost their way. I don't know that that's pertinent at this point. But if we go back to the people on the street element, there's an awful lot of folks who are upset with and disgusted with a lot of these. And Trump's rise could very well have a pretty good impact on something as casual as the CSI trustee election. People can see that if we band together and we make enough noise, we can in fact make a change. And they could do that.
One of my Radio Lodge brothers, I think his name is Bill Post, was hosting a talk show, not even a major talk show in the state of Oregon. But he got onto a lot of issues that really resonated with people, and he's now a state legislator because of that. And I'm not saying that I have any interest whatsoever, and I'm going to make that clear. I've got none. But why did he suddenly manage to capture an election?
Because people want to hear somebody who will change the status quo. Now, everybody's screaming and yelling at Trump, especially the Washington establishment people. Oh, we can't do this. Oh, this is terrible. Oh, we can't do that. Well, I'm sorry, Washington establishment. You created the mess. You didn't do the kinds of things that people voted you into office to have done. And you're not doing them. So they're angry. They're upset. They're disgusted with you. And so they're looking for somebody who, at least vocally and on the platform, the campaign stage, they're saying the right kinds of things, and it appears that they're really not too interested in changing their mind or backing down. They'll take on anybody. I mean, in the opening rounds of the debate last week, Trump took on Megyn Kelly.
It was supposedly going to sink him, but it didn't.
No, it didn't sink him because a lot of people think that some of the mainline media people, and I don't call Fox News mainline media, they're way on the right side of this schedule anyway, but it's who she represented and who she appeared to be focusing against. The whole tone of the rest of the debate changed when he fired that shot across the bow. Mm-hmm. It got much more manageable.
He's smart enough to know, he's been in media for 15 years, doing his own show, that people have short attention spans, and even if you have a spat with Megyn Kelly, they're not going to remember maybe that you were a little almost threatening with her. They're just going to remember you told her off.
Yeah, that's what they want to hear. And if we're telling off, quote, the establishment, unquote, we don't care whether it's Washington establishment or the New York media establishment, we're done with you. We want something different, and anybody who will tell us that story has our attention. And rightly or wrongly, that's the way it is. And the same thing holds true with Hillary Clinton. The Democrats, the Republicans created a structural system whereby they could select a nominee eventually. And this year has been compounded because we got 17 people that want to be on the stage. The Democrats created a different structural platform, and it kind of fit exactly where Hillary Clinton wanted to be. The problem was we had all of this stuff show up, and it just won't go away.
I think it's very, to be honest with you, I'm enjoying every bit of the Clinton meltdown. They call themselves the Democrats, and yet they aren't very democratic in the way they select a candidate.
No, they're not. They've pretty much already assigned the position, and the rest of you just sit down and shut up.
Now, if she gets indicted, I guess that probably means even a Trump could win the presidency if he's the Republican nominee.
If she gets indicted, that's going to change the political picture tremendously. That would be a real interesting. And even if she doesn't get indicted, those kinds of things don't happen in a 24-hour period. It's not quite the same as finding the culprit in a murder situation and throwing them in jail. And These kinds of things they just let evolve and run, and we're investigating, trying to get every little piece of information and items that they can use as evidence in a criminal or a jury proceedings.
Do you know what I heard this morning? The latest is that the server that private company in Denver where she had all the email stored, the server was in a bathroom.
Oh, swell! This gets better by the day,
It
doesn't it?
does. And we've been told, oh, she's the smartest person running in this race. Yeah, okay.
Give me a break.
I
The smartest person running in this race is Bobby Jindal, but he's not going to make the top tier list
Right.
either. So
no one votes for the kid in the front row who knows all the answers.
that's exactly right.
We've got to wrap up this conversation with Steve Millington. First of all, thanks for coming back.
Hey, thank you.
It's 59, coming up on 8:59.
You know, it's amazing how fast I heat the temperature up.
Yeah. It's been a really hot summer. And an entertaining one as well. Hey, one more hour of the program, but first, Fox News at 9 o'clock.